on all of our live stream options. 大家好, if you're logging in from Xiaotong, and YouTube, I think we're about to be live there. So let me just make sure. Are we live there? Are we live? I think we're live. Yep, I think we are. All right, great. Well, it's good to see everybody. Thank you so much once again for joining us on Tuesday Talks. And as I get kind of our slides and everything squared away, just wanted to remind you all that we do have a couple of streaming options for language support. So if you need Chinese,如果需要中文的话, you can go to this little QR code. I don't know if you can see it on my screen. And you can also, if you need Korean support in the chat on YouTube, we will have a Korean colleague of mine will be typing some translation in Korean. So you can go to those. I think the YouTube link might be a little bit small. So I will share a screen, or maybe somebody can, yeah. Let me see if I can get this link into the chat. There you go. If you need the YouTube link, it should be in the chat now. Okay, great. So that is the nuts and bolts. A couple more nuts and bolts. We want to answer your questions, and we will have a great time of questions at the end of our presentation. So if you have questions already that you kind of know, I want to make sure to ask this, go ahead and type into the Q&A box at any time. We're going to consolidate those and try to cover as many as we can. So it's great to see them come. Same goes for YouTube. If you have the question on YouTube or Xiaotong, go ahead and type it in the chat there as well. Yeah, well then, without further ado, I do want to once again say that our Tuesday Talks are brought to you by the Single Yellow Rose. And so counselors, if you've got seniors who are waitlisted and who don't know what to do, one thing they can do is show their love to the college that they really want to get off the wait list for. So if you have questions about that, you can scan the QR code here. All righty, well, let's get our slides up here and have a great conversation. And while I'm doing that, I just want to say thank you once again to my
Gloria, we've lost your sound.
We lost your sound, Gloria. Well, I'm going to pretend that you can hear me, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start talking. And so welcome everyone to Upstate New York. My name is Nicole Bensley, and I'm just going to give a little overview of the program today, and then we're going to dive right in. So first of all, what we're going to talk a little bit about is why Upstate New York, give you a little bit of highlights on the benefits and beauty of our region. We'll do a quick overview of each of our colleges and universities. And then at the end, as Gloria said, we'll have time for questions. Next slide. So to begin with, why Upstate New York? You kind of have the best of both worlds when you come to Upstate New York. You have some great urban environments, but also rural opportunities. We're not in New York City, but we are near several very large city hubs. Albany, our state capital, being one, Ithaca, Syracuse, Utica. So we are all in a region where there are vibrant cities, where students have access to amazing opportunities, but also access to some really lovely rural environments. So you really get the best of both worlds by coming to our region. Next slide, please.
So following up on what Nicole said, the location really offers a lot of opportunity. We do have access, for a long weekend or breaks to major metropolitan areas like New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, Toronto, but we're also generally smaller mid-sized cities. So there's a lot of advantages in terms of the opportunities there. And there are easy and affordable access to those cities through, it could be trains, it could be connecting flights, it could be direct bus service. So it offers access as well as having the advantages of being in a slightly smaller community.
So what does this mean for our students? It means that because of our proximity to these major cities and the affordable cost of living, there is a long tradition of attracting immigrants to this area. Our upstate cities also even have refugee relocation programs. So in every sense of the way, our communities are diverse. And what does this mean for our students? The reality is that this area has such a rich history. This area played an important role in the abolitionist movement and the women's suffrage movements. Our students and professors are still actively involved in research on these subjects. And you can actually see we have students that are doing active participation in our communities, whether it's wastewater testing, whether it's volunteering to create awareness for under-resourced students in the area, which is what you see these students doing. And it really enables our students to be involved in our communities in truly unique ways.
So we did want to take a moment also to talk about environment and outdoor activities. One of the wonderful benefits of coming to study and live in central New York is access to beautiful nature. When you see photographs of trees that are golden, green, yellow, red, every single color under the rainbow, upstate New York has beautiful foliage nature, and our students are very much engaged as well. In fact, several of our campuses will have outing clubs, which will be clubs that do trips, for instance, rafting trips, hiking, camping, and things that you can do free of cost as a student in our institutions. And some of our campuses will even have cross-country ski trails, things like that on campus. So it's a great opportunity to expand a little bit and take advantage of the beautiful four seasons that we have here. Now, in addition, proximity to nature, and we do have the largest state park in the continental US, Adirondack State Park in upstate New York, means that a lot of our institutions have a very strong commitment towards eco-friendly policies and sustainability. So if you're interested in environmentalism, sustainability, upstate New York can be a great opportunity for you.
And we have to mention the SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 pandemic that has been with all of us for just over a year now, if not longer. We are, again, fortunate in terms of our location relative to responding to COVID-19. Since the inception, since its introduction to all of our lives, New York State has really kind of come out of this doing better each and every moment that was possible. The state has strong local state sort of guidance, guidelines, and leadership has had around the pandemic, and one of the lowest infection rates in the state, and actually probably in the entire US, is probably found in the region where all of our schools are located, because the population is not as dense as it is in other places. And so good fortune for us there. And also because of our distance from major metropolitan cities as well, many of our institutions. And so there's just good, strong infrastructure, good guidance, good leadership, and there's good attention, healthcare, and other sorts of things related to the pandemic that you will find for this area and amongst all of our institutions. All of our schools provide information, guidance, policy around testing and sort of being on campus and wearing masks and socially distancing, and all of those things are provided. That information is provided to all of our students as well as to the local community. So we are very fortunate to be where we are in upstate New York.
So we are going alphabetically as we talk about each of our schools. And so that means I am up first. My name is Corianne Deatley, and I represent Colgate University. And so because I'm up first, I want you to have one fact about Colgate when you leave today. And that is that Colgate represents the best of a research university and a liberal arts college in one. We have 3,000 undergraduate students, 56 different majors, and we are committed to small classes with these world-renowned professors. And 83% of our students are graduating from our university having completed research at least once and often more times during their Colgate career. This is a community that is incredibly active because of our location. Our small town actually enhances and supports our students in some really unique ways. And Colgate is also nationally renowned for our study abroad programs. So about 64% of our students will study abroad and off campus at some point during their Colgate career. And our alumni are also famously loyal, and that really enables students to make wonderful connections during their time at Colgate and then beyond. We very much support our students and invest in our students in the same way that students are investing in us. And as I conclude here, I will just speak briefly about two students who are currently on campus. Joyce is a current sophomore at Colgate. She is from Chengdu, and she is a economics and computer science double major, but has some interest in international relations. She's involved in Colgate Debate Society. She is a tutor for students in the local community, and she is going to be doing software research this summer. There is another student who I'm thinking of named Sherlock. He is from Shenzhen, and he is a classics major with a minor in medieval and Renaissance studies. And he at Colgate is involved in soccer and the ski and snowboard club. And he will actually be getting his master's at Oxford University next year in the classics. So we really do support our students no matter where they want to go and what they want to do. And with that, no further ado, we can move forward to Cornell University.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Felton. I'm representing Cornell University. In talking about Cornell, I'll talk about its founding in 1865, but also mention its diversity, the diversity of persons that were to be a part of the community here, where they would be from, and what they would come to Cornell to study. That was a part of the sort of initial vision for this institution, and that vision has only grown. The Cornell University experience really is about individuals coming from anywhere in the world to this great institution to study whatever they might want to study. And the choice of study, the design of your experience as an undergraduate at Cornell is really a big part of the identity of this institution. We're privately endowed, an Ivy League institution. And really what that's about is we're focused on undergraduate education in a significant way, especially on our Ithaca campus, which is what we're here to talk about a little bit today. But undergraduates are from all over the United States and all over the world. And it's really great having that variety of identities and backgrounds and perspectives in our classrooms. We practice need-aware international admissions. We provide need-based financial aid for admitted students. And Cornell is really found in the world beyond this campus in upstate New York, but we are very lucky to have the great individuals who want to come study here, be a part of our community. Next slide. A little bit quickly, we were among the first institutions to combine the theoretical and the liberal arts, or the theoretical and the practical, the liberal arts, and with applied fields like architecture, engineering, also combining agriculture with those areas of study as well, given our location here in upstate New York, and the fact that our campus is surrounded by farming communities as well as suburban and urban communities. Students on this campus really sort of benefit from so many academic departments and majors and opportunities. Again, having the choice to choose and design their own undergraduate, their own educational and learning experience is really a very big part of Cornell's identity. Students find themselves in one of our undergraduate colleges for their major, most of their classes, although they will study in one college. Most specifically, they will have the opportunity to take classes throughout all of our undergraduate colleges. There are 7 or 8 of them, depending upon how you're counting. So a really broad experience, again, that is self-designed and really inspired by the imagination of each and every student. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So for Hamilton College, Hamilton College is a selective college of liberal arts, and you might think, what makes Hamilton different than some of our colleagues today and some other institutions across the United States? Well, there's a lot of answers to that question. One of the differentiating factors is that we have an open curriculum. This means we have no core education requirements, no breadth requirements. Instead, every student creates their own academic plan, working under close, careful supervision from our faculty. In fact, we have a 9-to-1 student-faculty ratio, so you will find that if you come to Hamilton, you will have mentorship from multiple faculty members across the institution. Now, we are a fully undergraduate institution as well, so this means when students are creating their academic opportunities, they're oftentimes engaging in research with faculty members and conducting internships. In fact, faculty members, when they hire research assistants, they are only hiring from our undergraduate population, since of course we do not have any master's or PhD students here. This means if you are interested in creating an academic plan that's unique to your interests, if you feel like you really want to study subjects you've maybe never had the opportunity to before, but you also want to make sure that every subject you're studying is one that you have an intense interest in, as opposed to the need to fulfill a requirement, Hamilton can be a great opportunity. And in fact, we also have very strong research opportunities for independent research. About 10% of our students will do independent research each summer, and 91% of our students will have at least one internship or research experience during their time here at Hamilton. 83% will have 2. I also want to highlight the fact that we do have study away programs. These are in Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston. So while you can see some of the beautiful photos of our campus and all of those things we talked about with environment and nature and beautiful foliage is definitely true, if you want the experience of studying in one of the big U.S. East Coast city locations, we have semesters which are designed around internships. So basically you would do an internship, for instance, if you're interested in working at Wall Street, you would do an internship during the during a full semester, and you would take classes in the evening with a Hamilton professor and about 15 other students who are studying in that city location during that term. This gives you the opportunity to, yes, experience the wonderful location of Clinton, New York, but also get some full-time internship in a field of your choice in one of the big East Coast city locations. With that said, I want to say thank you so much, and I look forward to questions at the end.
I'm always happy to talk about Ithaca College. One of the things I think is unique about Ithaca College is the founding. In 1892, we were founded as the Ithaca Conservatory of Music. In those 130 years since our founding, we've changed immensely and become a comprehensive residential college. But there is an aspect to Ithaca College that continues from the Music Conservatory, which is the idea of theory, practice, and performance. So in all of our academic programs, students learn the theory, and then they apply what they're learning in the classroom in practice, so that when they're asked to perform and grow and lead into their careers, they have that ability. Another aspect that I think is key to Ithaca College is the diverse number of academic programs that we offer. We have 98 different academic programs, and they go across the liberal arts, sciences, and include professional programs in business, communications, health science. And of course, we have strong performing arts programs in music and theater, since that was our basis. We do have the ability for students to practice what they're learning in theory, and this can be in research laboratories, internships, clinical settings, and performance spaces. So no matter what academic program you're in, you have the ability to apply what you're learning. Outside of the classroom, the environment at Ithaca College is very solidly in the idea of community and home. Most of our students are living on our campus, and they come from a wide range of places, both in the US and from around the world. So when we're in session, this is home and community for students. So there's 2 aspects to that. Clubs and organizations are really diverse, and students are often involved in multiple organizations that can focus on service, leadership, recreation, and entertainment. Then in addition, the college community provides a lot of support services that make sure that students are well. Health and well-being is paramount, but also are successful, like tutoring services, academic support services, career advising. So those services are available to all our students. And of course, for students coming from outside the US, there's a lot of support services in terms of being away from home and being an international student who may be on a student visa. So thank you. I'm anxious to hear questions.
And last but not least, I have the beauty of being at the end of the alphabet. My name's Nicole Bensley. I'm the Director of International Admissions at Union College. I have a slide full of words. Feel free to take a picture of it, save it for later review. There is a link to our brochure, a QR code there, lots of pretty pictures and more information there as well. I encourage you to check it out. So some unique things about Union. You're going to hear some common themes here. We have some great schools here to look at today. We were founded in 1795 with the idea of bringing together people in union to learn and grow together from various backgrounds, making sure we supported people at that time from various religious backgrounds. But now that really encompasses our full scope of diversity and our president's mission to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, challenging our students to become better citizens of the world. Union in the 1800s added multiple majors in engineering. We are the first liberal arts and science college, and you'll find that we're a very strong STEM school, science, technology, engineering, and math, with about 50% of our students in the STEM and about 50% in the social science and humanities. We do have graduate level facilities for our students. Our engineering students are ABET certified to work as engineers after 4 years. But the really unique things are 100% of our students conduct research as a part of our sophomore research symposium. 80% or more of them do unique and interesting research that is unique to them. And one really fantastic thing is the ability, you're in a liberal arts and science college, you can study multiple majors, but we actually allow students and support students through our professors to cross disciplines. So 80% of our students are doing work across disciplines. What does that mean? It means that your engineering professor may bring the classics professor in because she knows about ancient aquatics in Egypt, and we'll talk about it with you as you're looking at water design and the development of the engineering around that. So you're not just limited to just your engineering faculty, but you can go beyond that by really getting into the cool stuff that other professors can teach you. So that ability to go beyond what you would learn in just one discipline is unique to Union. Now, just a couple of examples. Yamba, she's one of our current students. I can't believe she's going to be a senior. She is interested in being a diplomat when she leaves Union. So she actually is doing this cool thing. It's called our organizing theme major, where she pulls programs across 5 or 6 different disciplines to create a diplomat or a diplomatic major. So she's really catering her curriculum for diplomacy when she leaves. Another student who's interested in electrical engineering, she not only was able to focus on electrical engineering, but also the financial component of it, and was able to get this really great program with Hackaday. She was the only undergraduate student on this huge 20-person global project that she had an opportunity for. So really, the opportunities our students are getting are unique to them, very focused on them, and supporting them in their unique goals and their unique missions. And I will end there. Thank you.
Wonderful. You all did such a great job of being super concise and getting lots of information out. And I know that there are already a couple of questions, but now is the time to be sending out questions, and we're putting up some frequently asked questions about some school specific things. We do, as always, encourage people to be reaching out, especially if you have a really specific institutional question. We can cover some of those today, but we will try to cover some broader questions. But I did want to kind of just start off and ask, most of the audience today is international, and there have been some questions about, how that's been, in terms of Are people anxious about being an international applicant? Are people on your campuses? I know, Sean mentioned, the great things about upstate New York's handling of COVID, but, I think if some of you could kind of give a little sense of how the community is feeling in terms of whether it be welcoming international applicants or supporting international applicants or international students in this time.
So I think I can take a start at this, and some of my colleagues can share. As I think Corey was talking a little bit about the historical and cultural significance of this region. This is a region that has been very much informed and created through international citizens, refugees, people relocating here both recently and over a history of time, which means that we are generally a fairly welcoming and a fairly inclusive region location. I know each of our institutions as well. Now, when it comes to this past year, of course, it's important to note that international students have, while the entire world is going through really, really obviously trying experience, to say the least, international students have a multitude of additional concerns, being separated from their family, being able to even cross into borders, health risks in a place where it's not necessarily your home location. There's a lot to consider and a lot to think about. So I think one of the things that our institutions have been very able to do is to respond on a case-by-case and a person-by-person basis. So I know in Hamilton, when the institution last year did have to go online for the remainder of the spring semester, the first thing that we did was to check in with each of our international students to see, did they want to try and stay in the United States? If so, we needed to make sure that they had free housing and free room and board on our campus for including over the entire summer, which we did for international students who wanted to stay. If they wanted to return home, our college actually set up a triage location in the center of our campus where students were able to come through, and we purchased them airline tickets and helps them come up with plans to return home. Now, since then, we realized that, of course, it's not all just making sure you have a place to live and things to eat. You need to make sure you have social and emotional support as well. So our college paired each international student and US students who, for whatever reason, wanted to stay on campus over the spring term and over the summer with an academic liaison, someone who could make sure that they're were able to finish their academic work, and also with an emotional social support person who was a community member. I myself was paired with a student from Wuhan. So I would check in with him multiple times per week. We would go on walks outside, socially distanced walks with masks on, and just to make sure that he was doing okay in this time when he was not able to return home. So I would say there's a lot that can be done and a lot that can be spoken about for support for international students right now. But our institutions, particularly with our small classroom sizes, with our focus on the individual, as well as goal of using policies that are student focused and health and safety focused, I think is something that is really important.
Gloria, I see a question there that says, are Asians safe? And I just want to be very, very specific, because as a mom of twin 12-year-olds, I'm going to tell you that I would have the same question for my children, sending my children abroad, especially seeing the news from the United States. The United States is a big country, just like many of your countries are. And what I would say is that you're looking at very special spaces here, the schools that you're talking to today. So we tend to be schools, like I said at Union, brothers and sisters of Union. We're a community that we envelop our students, our Asian students specifically. We're there to support you, to say, this is hard. What we're going through here in the United States, it's layers upon layers of hard, but we're going to be there together to support our students, keep them safe, make sure they're supported. So it's our campuses, our communities of themselves. You're coming to the home of our campus. You're coming to a place where you're not disappearing into a city for your housing separate of our campus. So they're microcosms or micro communities in some ways, where we say, listen, this is a space at least where you're coming, you're respected. Our communities, we talked about that already, but our very specific communities are safe and welcoming for our Asian students, and making sure that they're safe and they're supported through all of these trying times. And that's true of everyone, but I want to make sure very specifically understanding that question, that when you choose your school, that's why you choose a place like ours. I saw Corey on mute.
And if you do have any particular questions about how our institutions are supporting our Asian students, reach out to us directly, because often I find it's one thing for me to answer the question and it's another for a current student to answer that question. And we are happy to enable you to make those connections before you even apply to our schools, so that you have a real sense of what it would be like to come to the US, immerse yourself in our communities, and grow. And so know that that is an option to you about with any one of our schools.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing that question up, because I definitely was going to bring that up as well. And I just wanted to like overemphasize to the community and the people who are watching today, you know, I love doing these Tuesday talks because I know these colleagues and I just feel like I feel moved and touched by what they share. And I know that they are all coming from really great communities, and they really strive to want to bring in a class of people that are part of that and part of changing things. Like, we have definitely broken things in our country and broken things in our systems, but we're so privileged to be able to bring in people from all over the world to kind of to help kind of bring about change. So so thank you for that. I wanted to kind of dive into, because of your location, there are some people asking kind of like, how easy is it to get in and out of New York City, for example? So can you guys address a little bit of like how students kind of get back and forth, and whether or not there are transportation programs or buses that enable students to kind of go back and forth?
I can start on that. As the admission people who recruit, you know, and work with international students, we do a lot of traveling from our homes. And so one of the things that we also need to do is have access to international transportation. And for most of us, that means an easy connection to international airport. It could be on a short flight. It could be on a train or a direct bus service. So there is easy connection to all areas of the world. And then within, certainly with most communities, for instance, in Ithaca, you can have direct bus service to New York City. So you are on a bus that is, you know, goes directly into New York City and be there in about 4.5 and 5 hours. So those kinds of infrastructure are in place because, again, you're not alone. There are students coming from all over the world to study on our campuses, so that infrastructure is already there to support those kinds of needs.
I will say too, Union's a little bit more east, so we're nestled up against Albany, the state capital. And for us, you know, like to draw a point, you can walk 10 minutes from our campus to get to the bus and the train station. That brings you right into the city. So it's very accessible. The airport is, you'll spend 20 minutes on heavy traffic, which there's not really in our region, to get to the airport to connect you. So really, when we talk about accessible, we mean really very accessible and easy to get around.
Wonderful. And many of you mentioned internship opportunities, and I know that that is something that people consider when they're thinking about location. But one thing is, like, people are considering, like, as a freshman, what opportunities do I have? You know, there's this idea of like, maybe you have to wait till you're a junior before you can get a good internship. And so the question is, like, what are the opportunities for freshmen, you know, either internship or research or even study abroad?
So I think this is a great question. Again, each institution here is going to have a different way of answering this, but the answer is going to be many opportunities. Now, the question really then comes, if you're coming to the United States for the first time for your opportunity to study, it can be sometimes overwhelming to think about, am I missing out on an opportunity, right? So should I be starting internships? Should I be talking about studying abroad in my second year? How do I make sure that I'm not falling behind? You can understand it's a big investment. It's a big period of time. You want to make sure you're getting the most you're not missing out on opportunities because you're not aware of them. So each of our institutions is going to have really, really strong academic advisors as well as career advisors, and people who will be able to help connect you to these opportunities. It's also a great idea to connect with current students who are upperclassmen because they can talk to you about your experiences. Now, just a quick plug for Hamilton. We are launching a new program this year, which is called an ALEX advisor. And basically the idea for the ALEX advisor is approaching this problem head on, saying you want to make sure that you're not missing out on internships, research, study abroad, extracurricular activities. Where do you go to basically make sure that you're maximizing, getting the most of your education? So we're starting a new program called an ALEX Advisor, and they're going to work with you consistently 3 or 4 years. It's going to start even in the summer before you come to Hamilton. And they're going to be basically helping you to plan for those things. So the idea is making sure that nothing falls between the cracks because you have someone who is very aware of all the opportunities Hamilton has to offer. We'll get to know you on an individual basis and help you plan for those 4 years.
And I'll just add, yes, yes, and yes. And we also all have really strong international student services on our campus too. And so when you're even thinking about what to major in, you will have advisors who will help you navigate how that might impact your visa, the OPT that you qualify for, and more. So keep that in mind as well too, that we do have that individual support as well.
Wonderful. So I want to talk a little bit about COVID impacts because there's quite a few questions about this. So the first one was like related to people who had kind of a rough junior year, which is everyone probably on some level. But so I guess the question, and I want to try to make it more general. I see one specific one here about, how to, if your grades dropped during your junior year, how can you kind of like compensate for that? That's a question, but maybe just even more broadly, like explaining kind of the context that you all are going to be considering for this upcoming application season.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the impacts of the pandemic, certainly we've all had to sort of reimagine our work and how we read applications because of the devastation and the impacts that all students and families around the world have felt. And this will sort of sustain for years to come because, younger students will be applying in future years and the effects of 2020 will still be present in our work in evaluating students when we're looking at applications. We've all had to sort of revisit the admissions evaluation process. We've all had to revisit what we expect from students, what we can't expect from students because of the lack of access and the change of modality in terms of learning. Many students had to learn online, for the first time ever, perhaps, and in totality last year, and some even into this year. And so this will affect, we know, marks and success in the classroom, participation, and just the sense of comfort and, sort of what students and how students were doing before the pandemic really took a hold of all of us is going to be very different for many students and many applicants to our institutions than what we will see now and what we will see perhaps if we're looking at the sort of the full 3 or 4 years of the secondary experience. We might see that there was a change in progress, success, and we have to consider that when we're looking at applications. We have to remember that this year was just not anything that any one of us could control. And there's empathy for that. There's understanding around that goes into our evaluation of candidates. At Cornell specifically, we spent the entire summer last year sort of learning how to read admissions applications again in a very different way. Students wouldn't have, all the extracurriculars that they've had in the past. There may be grade changes related to a modality or just the struggle with, learning online. So we had to consider all those things. Access to teachers and counselors was probably diminished for many students because of the lack of physical space, being in the same place at once and being able to engage in person. So we really had to consider how all of this would affect the information we receive, and really had to consider that in our decision making. So this year was challenging, for admission certainly, but certainly for our students, and we understand that absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard, at For Tuesday Talks, and anybody who's kind of come on these talks, we talk about holistic review all the time and trying to kind of wrap our mind around holistic review. And in light of this, just kind of thinking, well, the things that I thought were part of the quote unquote formula, which we know there's no formula, but still that's the thing, now all of those have kind of suffered from that. And so, what I think there's a question like, what kind of students are you looking for? What kind of students is your school more interested in? Like, how can we gain favor? And with that, if as you're answering that, test optional is like the other big question of like, now that it is, how important are tests? And I think some of you can kind of cover like, well, maybe tests weren't that important to begin with, but just kind of color a little bit to help our families here kind of understand how to approach the application process. I think we're still kind of thinking formula, and now our formula is broken. So how can you give a little color on like what you're hoping to see in an application?
Yeah, I'm happy to start actually, because I actually might sort of make the response a little bit complicated. I don't know at Cornell, and I'll speak specifically on this question. I don't know that we changed who we're looking for because of the pandemic. I think we changed our expectations around who we would see, what they would look like, what they might have to share, meaning the students, the applicants, their experiences. We needed to sort of realize that things were not going to be as they were. We weren't going to see, especially given our going test optional, sort of following the lead of a lot of the great institutions that are on this call who did it before we did. But we had to remember we're not going to see students with the top scores necessarily, or test scores at all. And so we really had to learn to rely on the information that we received, and we had to be prepared to see things differently because the applicants were going to look differently. So we still want a student that's going to be able to do the work here, and that's going to be comfortable in being a student given the rigor of the experience. But we also have to look for other things, or we would see other things. And I guess as a result of seeing those other things, we actually started looking for them. Things like resilience, things, like this student really had to overcome quite a bit to achieve what they've achieved in this last year. Some students didn't have classes that they would have had, if the world hadn't been turned upside down, communicated by the student, by the school officials that told us all these things. And so, yeah, I think for us, we had to just sort of remember that the students were going to look different. They were going to feel different. They were going to talk differently to us in their essays. And we had to be ready to really sort of to receive how they've changed, and sort of think about like, well, what impact could they have as a part of our community? And what impact could we have on them as a community that's rebuilding because of the pandemic, certainly. So.
And remember that when we are reviewing applications, we do not know who we will admit until students apply. And so the best piece of advice that we can also give you is not to try to do this, and this in order to be admitted to this one school. Particularly because of the challenges in this pandemic, we've been seeing that a lot of students have refocused their interests or changed their minds about their interests, and that's all okay too. And so just adding to what Sean has said, be really thoughtful in which schools you're looking at, because every year this process has actually been different for us. And so keep that in mind, that there is no one special way to get admitted to any of our schools. You need to trust yourself in this application process.
So Gloria, I know that folks love structure. You talked about the formula, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of the schools, and I think whether you use this structure or not at our schools, it gives good structure to it. So Harvard has this, you know, character assessment or character collaborative initiative, right? Like, how do we focus on character rather than test scores? So the formula really is these things. We look for, as Sean said, intellectual engagement. How are you engaging your intellect, and how do you demonstrate that in your application? So that could be test scores, or it could be not test scores, but how are you demonstrating your intellectual engagement? Mm-hmm. Interpersonal character. So how are you able to show that you're caring and empathetic and honest, part of part of a team or a community, because you're coming to our communities? How do you play into that community? And then sort of interpersonal character. So how are you able to be, resilient through difficulties? Or how are you motivated? How are you able to manage your time in difficult situations? So when Sean says we didn't realize we were looking, but we're suddenly looking for these things and looking more often. I think that in the US, we've always looked for these things, but there are these words now that pull together in some way the things we've always been looking for. And that gets beyond sort of the formula of test scores, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great, Nicole. Thank you for that. That does, the structure helps, and like those definitions of what you're looking for are nice.
I like structure and so I understand. I like my spreadsheets, so I understand. So that hopefully it's still very loose, but it really, I think, gets to the heart of what a lot of us are looking for in terms of how do you impact our community when you come.
Well, and that is why we're having these conversations. That's why we're having the Tuesday talks, to kind of try to take these really nebulous things and make them a little bit more concrete. I mean, even, soft skills, that's a really hard thing to define. And we're constantly saying it's something that you don't know how to explain or assess, but you know it when you see it and read it and hear it. And so, I think it is just something that the counselors on this call and the educators on this call are working on figuring out how to bring about. So students, I think a lot of it is just asking yourself questions. Who are you? And what makes you click and what makes you excited? And then how to communicate that in your application. Mm-hmm. There is a question about, well, this is specifically Cornell, but I know at the liberal arts colleges, switching majors is not a big deal. At Cornell, because there are colleges, there are some questions about kind of college specific applications, and then also, can you switch out of a college? I am encouraging those that want to apply to Cornell to reach out to Cornell specifically. But if you can cover real quickly, any suggestions on that?
I mean, I think it's really no different than applying to any of the other schools in terms of the college structure and the majors. Our majors are just grouped together in different colleges, and you do have to write an interest essay. The interest essay does need to sort of connect you to the major and college of interest in a very specific way. We're planning to put out some guidance around this particular question later this summer, because like the other schools here, we'll be changing our essay questions as a part of the annual review. And so with the change of questions, we thought, what a great opportunity to give folks the answer to a question that many ask all the time, and it's happened here too. So what are you guys looking for in that other essay? Because we haven't cracked the code. And it's because it's been made difficult, I think, perhaps on purpose, for too long, maybe. I think that we probably can say what it is we have been seeing in essays of that sort, the interest essays for the colleges here at Cornell in the past, and what we hope to see in those essays in the future. So check with me or check with the university admissions office later this summer.
Thank you. I am going to put your contact information
Absolutely.
back up, because I think people are asking some school specific questions. So I want to make sure that everybody does go to the websites and email wonderful, wonderful colleagues, because they have some great things. So, you know, there are questions about, you know, obviously visas, vaccines, all those are questions that we don't have the answers to. But there are people saying, like, if we can't get there, what is the online situation? Is there going to be an online situation?
Mhm. The answer is most of our schools have absolutely, you know, sort of endeavored into quite successfully at this point, providing online learning opportunities for students, whether they happen to be on our campuses or local to our campuses, near our campuses, or if they happen to be somewhere else in the U.S. or around the world. You know, for example, last fall, a lot of college campuses were mostly mostly online and remote. Instruction was happening that way. Fall of 2020. This spring, more college campuses are offering in-person and remote opportunities. And for the fall semester, I think you're going to find that this coming fall and moving ahead, this question will come up, and schools will be communicating their opportunities, intentions, and you know, sort of modalities for learning to their new students in advance of the semester starting, and as soon as they have made decisions. My guess would be for this fall, many colleges are planning to offer sort of the hybrid approach again, which would be in-person learning with some remote online learning as we're sort of moving through the process of more people around the world becoming vaccinated, and there being more comfortability with, you know, being in sort of being in spaces with larger numbers of people during the pandemic. So things actually look like they're going to continue getting better in that regard. So that's a great question.
Great, thank you. For those of you who are on the call, I mean, for the institutions that are smaller and liberal artsy, that, you know, I think a lot of international applicants are still a little wary about going to a liberal arts college, just because it's not as, I don't know, there's regions that we're working with here who may not know, they just don't know about liberal arts education. So what would you recommend for counselors who are encouraging that kind of small community, or what would you recommend to students who, you know, want to know more on how to kind of like consider not the large university, but the small liberal arts college?
I can start, and my colleagues can add. So I would say, we're a fully undergraduate, 2,000 students, fully liberal arts. So I think small liberal artsy sounds a little like us. What I like to talk about with students is the purpose of liberal arts. The purpose of liberal arts really is to make sure students are able to study across academic disciplines, so they don't only gain one skill set. Now, and that's also one of the reasons why you'll find a lot of colleges, even colleges that focus on engineering, business, will also have students take a course across different academic disciplines, because the real focus of US institutions and liberal arts institutions particularly is making sure that students have experiences across academic disciplines, because we believe it's going to help you navigate a rapidly changing world by developing problem-solving skills and a little bit of understanding across different academic areas. So for instance, you can also, whenever I talk with students individually, I also talk about how quickly the world changes. This was true before the pandemic, but the fact that the jobs that exist 5 and 10 years from now do not exist yet. I like to talk about things like Amazon, Alibaba, what were they doing 10 years ago, and how could you predict that if you're trying to prepare for such a career? So one of the best ways to prepare for a career at liberal arts colleges, we believe, is a combination of academic studies across different academic areas, but also combining that with practical internship and research experiences, which really prepares students to be adjustable, flexible problem solvers. And you can really see that in outcomes as well. So I know a lot of our institutions have been talking about really high internships and job placement rates, and at Hamilton, it's no different. 10 months after graduation, 97% of our students are employed. In fact, at the time of graduation, 81% of our students on average have had at least 2 interviews before that time has even occurred. So the employability is really there, but more important than employability, because you don't want to prepare yourself just for one job. It's important to learn across academic disciplines, to be able to experience the world and understand more than just one aspect of it. So that way, by the time you graduate from a liberal arts institution or one of our institutions, you're prepared not just for a job, but for a fulfilling purpose and a career. I know a lot of students on the call, and the students of the counselors on the call are really, really motivated by not just having a job, but having an impact after they graduate and they leave. And a liberal arts institution also gives you some of the foundation to be able to approach life after college, not just from this is the specific job I want to do, but this is the impact I'd like to make on a rapidly changing world.
I would just like to throw down the LAC, like gamut here a little bit and say, we talk about breadth and depth with liberal arts, right? So you're going to get depth like you would at any other university, which is going to make you successful. We also give you breadth, meaning ways to apply it in new and unique ways, which guess what? Makes you a leader. So do you just want to be successful, or do you want to be successful and a leader? If you want to be a leader, you come to an LAC college. So there's my throwdown a little, because we really allow people to not only go deep into what they're learning, just like everyone else, but you get to be cool and unique and go beyond that mold. And so that's what we encourage students to do, is to really go beyond the mold and go from just theory, practice, like what Anna was talking about. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw down a little there, like how much do you want? That we're going to give you the moon if you get a chance to come and take a look at it. So all my colleagues are laughing. Like, we can be polite, but I'm just going to tell you how cool it is, right? Yes, it's awesome. I went to a large state institution. I can compare and I know what's happening. It's an amazing experience where we take students. So there's my little bit of a throwdown today.
The other thing that I would like to add about the idea that it's a cultural, sort of preference or aspect to education of whether you study across disciplines or have a wide range, or you're more narrowly focused. The alums who I speak to who did a liberal arts education in the US and then returned to an area where that's not as popular a concept, talked about how they were able to translate that into an advantage in the areas that they went to, and that right now there's really no isolated cultural context. So they were able to use that experience when working with US companies, even though they weren't based in the US, European companies. So the advantages of the liberal arts idea of education can translate into other areas where maybe that hasn't been there historically.
Gloria, I would just add too that, Cornell is a liberal arts university. We're founded around the diversity of learning, of thoughts, of people, of person, of place. And, I can probably speak for Colgate. Colgate hasn't said anything yet, but, they have the word university in their title as well. But liberal arts is an experience. And what's interesting to me is that we, at a university like Cornell, we really don't see ourselves any different from a Hamilton or from a Union. Union offers engineering, ABET accredited engineering, so does Cornell. So there are things that we have in common, regardless of sort of what we might call ourselves, college, university. There's lots in common. And this group, in addition to being in upstate New York and really just this really a beautiful, amazing place, we are all liberal arts institutions. We're all committed to this idea of learning across disciplines, that's going to influence critical thinking and your ability to be a leader. I love that, Nicole. And so many other things, the access to, variety of different learning areas is really important. I mean, Ithaca College, going from conservatory to what it is now, and having that amazing business program and communications program that, you know, a lot of people know about. I mean, that's what all of our institutions are really about. It's providing broad experiences that students get to choose from. The idea of being able to choose and to create that experience you want, you know, that's what opens your sort of after university sort of opportunities up and choices up. That's what opens you up to being able to sort of create and design your own experience. And so, you know, for us, liberal arts is really kind of a launching point. And every school provides a different kind of experience. And so it's really important to find out, is the experience at this university or this college, what is the experience? What opportunities do I have to learn broadly and deeply in ways that are going to impact my future?
Sean's reply was far more PC than mine. Yes, there's places for everyone. But I'm just gonna say, I had to just, we're all LACs in the room here, so I had to throw it out with a little LAC love, right? There are places for everyone. We just make leaders. No, I'm just kidding. Come on, like we had to cheer the LAC a little. Sean's like, yes. We had to cheerlead a little here. How awesome LAC is, right, Sean?
Well,
little cheering.
It's really awesome.
With that, we're going to end because it's time to end. But I just want to say again, the reason why, I mean, in your college search process, you should be having these conversations. You should be asking these questions. You should be like meeting admissions officers from all over different types of schools that you wouldn't have considered before, just because you're going to get fresh perspective and you're going to know then what other questions you should be asking of yourself, but also of your counselor, of your high school. I mean, these admissions officers, they benefit from this dialogue because they understand the context that you're coming from. We talk about context at every Tuesday talk. So it means that, you know, you want to talk to your counselor, talk to your counselor and talk to your high school, figure out your high school profile so that your information is being, you know, shared. So this sharing of information is so great. Thank you so much for joining us once again for Tuesday Talks. Please reach out to these institutions if you have specific questions. They would love to talk to you. They would love to know, engage with you and give you the right link, the right person to talk to. Reach out to current students. They're the ones who are going to tell you what being on these campuses are like and what all these wonderful things that these colleagues said, like that they actually are the same for the student experience. So again, please come back next Tuesday. We're gonna have another great talk about soft skills, no, about Canada. Canada is next week. So if you wanna know about Canada, come to next week's Tuesday talk. But in the meantime, have a great week, have a great night, evening, morning, wherever you are.